messy, messy hair. That's okay, because just a second ago, I looked in the mirror and I saw I had a big piece of broccoli right between my front teeth, so I feel like I'm looking fine right now. Look, that's my next thumbnail. How to work broccoli into every YouTube thumbnail. Okay. Hi, I'm Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life. I have a blog by the same name, and that's my name on Instagram. On Ravelry, I am Mamatronic, and my point in doing this is to kind of talk to you like a friend you're knitting with would speak, and then I encourage you to speak back in the comments. Just share your thoughts on anything I talk about or whatever, and I often ask questions, and then whatever your feedback is kind of guides the next episode. So we're chatting back and forth as much as possible. My AC is going because I'm wearing a sweater that I finally wove in the ends on, so hopefully it won't mess with the sound. I'm actually going to check and see. I cut off the AC. I'll be okay. I've got multiple cold drinks and I'm good. I'm going to try to keep this a little shorter because I think, oh my gosh, like it took me 5 days to upload episode 51. And I figured out all it takes is like a 30-foot cable winding its way through our house and everyone shutting down all modern devices, reading old tomes by lantern light, you know, that's all it takes. You have to do that for like 6 hours and then, you know, a 30-minute episode is uploaded. That's all. So I kind of hate to ask anyone to do that. So I'm just gonna try and make these more brief. But I've really been struggling to do that with my full memory card. But I finally reformatted the memory card on my camera. I have graduation pictures I did for someone like 4 years ago, still on my camera. I finally dumped all of that stuff, so I feel all fresh and clean again. So I had a giveaway for a copy of the Hope Sweater pattern by Els Machon, which I wore in episode 51, and it's a wonderful sweater. I had so much fun making it, and you cannot get bored while you're knitting it. It's also looks really complex, but it's not. It's totally doable with her instructions. And so I appreciate everyone who entered for that and left comments about things you have recycled or reknit or want to recycle and reknit. And Cherie, you won that giveaway. I will have contacted you by the time you see this episode, but I just wanted to announce that. And thank you everyone who let me know you are up for reknitting or remaking something, or at least the kinds of things you have recycled in the past, because that gives me good ideas. Here are well, first of all, let me talk about this sweater. I finished it ages ago. I started it eons ago. I took photos that are like my Ravelry finished photos, but it was actually just a short sleeve sweater then when I went to Iceland. That's what I had hoped I would have this ready for, you know, that trip, something warm and woolly to wear. It wasn't finished, but I came home, I worked on it, and I told you in the podcast, I never actually have podcasted since I had all the ends woven in, and I got busy in the last year and I wove in ends on things. So that's all it takes is no podcasting, and all of a sudden I'm tidying things up. It's so nice to wear this and it be a legit finished sweater instead of full of weird ends on the inside. Here's the thing, I have no finished photos of it with long sleeves, but this weekend my husband and I took my camera, and then it was rainy, so we ended up using my phone for most of them, and we took some photos of some finished knits. And this was one of them. Also in those, and I may just make some of those finished photos the thumbnail for this episode, like this one. This graduate scarf, I took a bunch of finished photos. It's catching my earrings. I took a bunch of finished photos of this, and I wore it with the matching Seafarer's cap. I told you I used my leftovers. This took 2 balls of salt, 2 of arrowwood. I had a lot left of each color, the last ball of each color, and so I made a striped seafarer's cap. I've actually already given that away, but I will put in a photo here I took of it at my house before I gave it away. But I wore this one with it and took some photos, and they're cute enough. They're good. I thought it looked really cute. And it was nice to do a finished object photo. It's been a long time since I actually did that. In fact, he was really patient and we did a bunch over the weekend. It kind of stinks though, because that one day that it was raining, I had my phone. I didn't want to take my camera out in the rain, but it was overcast, so they came out really well. The next day we went, it was high noon and super bright, and I couldn't find shade anywhere to take some good photos. So we ended up in our backyard just doing weird crouching on the ground type stuff, or just indoors, you know. Anyway, this was another thing we photographed, and you can see I did this in Patons classic wool. It was like moss, I think, or olive heather colorway, and you can see I started running low on the main color dye lot. I had a bunch more in my stash, but when I held them up to each other, one was a newer dye lot that I got a few years after the first dye lot, and it was darker. So you can see in this light, on this camera, it does something with color value. You can really see dark to light. So you see these dark striping. I tried alternating the darker skein in here and there. I did the same on the sleeves, kind of making it random, hoping it would look kind of natural. I knew if I ran short, it would just be a bit, so I just did it here and there. In the end, I don't think I would have run short. I did all of that for nothing. But when you see this in person, it doesn't look striped. And I do actually think it has the look of a natural sheepy wool that has some natural variants that was over dyed. I don't mind it at all. And I certainly didn't want to rip back and redo it. This is the Birch Pullover by Pam Allen. It came from her Plain and Simple book. This book probably came out in 2017 or 2018. There are several patterns in here I would like to make. And you can see this was her sample pattern. It made me want to knit this. I liked the amount of ease in the sweater, and I think I achieved that with this. This is my perfect amount of ease. I knit the 45.5 bust, hoping for 10 inches of ease. And I don't know, I think I achieved that. This is the most comfortable yoke sweater fit that I have. You know, sometimes yoke sweaters, they go down a little lower and it makes sort of a poncho, swancho effect. And you know, your arms must stay by the side. I don't feel super comfortable in those all the time. But I'm gonna show you my rug probably in the next episode. It definitely does that. It is, has enough ease though that doesn't really bother me so much. I wanted to show you there's a few more knits I really loved in here. And I talked about this when I got it. Balsam, this cowl. I've seen several patterns like this coming out recently. Sort of sort of a dicky, a cross between a cowl and a dicky. And then, let's see. I think it was Larch was the name, yeah. Larch was the other one I wanted to knit. And I actually got yarn. You can see it's got a little pocket, a cowl neck. It's got some ease to it also. Here we go. That maybe shows the fit a little better. I don't know if you guys have used Red Sock, Blue Sock yarn ever. I really like their yarn. I've knit several things in their yarn. I was just going through I gave away, you know, that Seafarer's cap. I gave away some other of my knits because I've just collected so many. I live in Texas. I haven't worn several of them. But as I was looking through all my old projects and my under the bed boxes and stuff, I was just admiring the Red Sock, Blue Sock yarn that I've used. It's a really beautiful indie dyer, Chantel and Ashley, and they do a thing now where you can get, you've probably heard of it, a sweater's quantity at a really affordable price. And every few months, they'll have pre-orders for any weight of yarn that they sell that would make a sweater in certain colorways. It's like maybe 2 or 3 colorways only. And so you decide, do you want fingering, do you want worsted, DK, and you place your order, and then they dye it up for you and you get it a little later. And I think I did that with the yarn for large. Maybe not, maybe I just bought some of their yarn on sale, because they will run sales often. They're often running really good like sock yarn sales and things. They're in Canada and I'm in the US, and so when buying something from Canada, there's usually, you know, a little bit more of a shipping charge. That doesn't make a big difference if you're buying a sweater's quantity to me. If you're buying a large amount of yarn, a little bit more in shipping, doesn't matter. But if you were just getting like socks or something, they often have sales going that will make up for that excess shipping. So if you're into buying indie dyed yarn, I just suggest them. They have some, they always are doing like clubs and new type colorways, but they have some staple colorways that are so beautiful. And they're sort of an evergreen juniper type color is what I want to do large in. I'm hoping to do that in the coming year. Anyway, I just wanted to show the sweater to you. Officially, it's actually all the way done. Ends are woven in. I am not going to go and reknit all in one dye lot. But of things I was talking about reknitting, this plaid monster sweater that I made up a while back, I did it for our Wing It cowl that we had here. So it was about kind of winging it, trying something new. And I just wanted to try and make up my own pattern from start to finish, just measuring and, I don't know, fiddling with stitches. I didn't want to look at any sort of guide. And since it's like a simple drop shoulder pattern, I did a little bit of short row shaping here for the neckline in the front. It's super minimal design required. The only thing really here was taking notes so that, you know, as I started the front and the back, just that the top front, you know, would match the back, making note of my stitches and where I was doing my plaids and such. And then I said, if I did write up how I did this, I would share it with you who were in the knit along. Not that I really think anyone else wants something this busy, but I am going to share my little recipe for this. I thought even at one time, since it's such a simple design, maybe I would even figure out different sizes for it, but I don't think I'll ever get around to doing that. But you can always kind of fiddle with gauge and yarn weight and, you know, mess with the size, or just you'll have my notes and you can read through it and say, okay, I just want to add some rows, add some stitches. But I enjoyed this pattern a lot. It was so much fun to make. And when I was done, before I added these chain stitch crochet vertical lines, the fit was great. It was so easy fit. I mean, look how it's very drop sleeve. It just hung perfectly. Then I did these vertical stripes and they tightened up and stiffened up the body, and it kind of comes out almost like a little bit of an A shape, A line now. I don't like that personally. And I thought, oh, I'm just gonna weave in the ends and deal with it. I can't imagine reknitting this. I had a sport weight yarn. I was gonna do a different version with a dark main color background. I thought I'll just do that and enjoy that one more, but I really like this. And busy as it is, I wish I had done it by this winter. However, if we do this reknit, recycle, remake, knit along, we can do it through March. I will at least start this. Probably I will get it finished. I'm gonna do what Dawn suggested. And so instead of 1 chain stitch per knit stitch on my way up, I'm going to do 2 chain stitches in every other or every third knit stitch. That gives it a lot of room to kind of sag and drape and pull like it should. So I thought this was cute. I made this with the intention, and I have not woven in many ends. Some of these are woven in. I'm gonna have to just I'm just gonna have to cut and pull all of these vertical stripes, but I made it to where I could weave my ends in neatly enough that the whole sweater would be reversible. And you can see that the body is in a stockinette plaid, but the sleeves have the reverse side showing. So when you flip it inside out, you've got stockinette plaid on the sleeves and reverse stockinette plaid on the body. I thought that was kind of fun. So anyway, that is the project I'm definitely going to reknit or recrochet. And then another one, the balls of yarn that I recycled from PacSun sweaters. That place was going out of business and my daughter worked there and it was insane. It was like you know those Victoria's Secret sales they'll have, and they have the little bins of all the sizes of bras and panties, and women are just like going crazy, just bras being thrown everywhere. None of them are in the right container. You see two women fighting over a certain kind of thong or something. It was like that in that place, but it was like a bomb had gone off and no one was there when I went, and we got the dregs. And it was like $1 or $3 per scarf and hat. And so I got a couple of scarves, maybe a couple of hats, and I unknit them, and I showed you last week. I have some gray and some green, super bulky roving type yarn. And I thought what I would do with them is knit some Goodnight Day patterns. I always kind of go to those when I have just an odd amount of super bulky, because so many of her patterns are made for super bulky yarns. And I wanted to show you, I recently knit these and I don't have them now. This is her, I don't know how to say it. It's A-I-K-I, so Aiki seated rib scarf. I made this for a family member in recycled yarn that I got from Goodwill. It was actually unused. I think it was Loops and Threads Lush Alpaca. And so it's an alpaca mix yarn, but it is easy care. So it can be machine washed, and that's why I used it for a gift. And then along with it came the Kenora toque. I say toque. My grandmother used to say toque, but some people say toque. So this is the Kenora. And I made a matching one because of this. I had so much of that yarn. And you can see, like, you know it was a terrible, poorly lit indoor photo if it's in black and white. It's like the rings under my eyes are showing. It's like, this picture's so bad, I'll just make it black and white. But it was a gray charcoal, you know, hat and scarf. So you don't need to see the color for that one. So I already did that seated rib scarf, which was what I originally thought I would do with that recycled yarn that I got at PacSun. So I don't want to do it again. Some things I'm thinking of are the Siska toque. That's a 2x2 rib. I am thinking of the Durant cowl, which has kind of a texture to it and fringe, and I think that yarn would fringe up really nicely. Here is her seated rib scarf in her book. Isn't it really pretty? I might still do it. I'm just not quite sure I have enough yarn for that. Another one is and there are several versions of this, the Bloomfield blanket wrap. There is one in one of her newer books. I just thought this was a really pretty yarn. I've actually made that before. This is not a wool. It's mostly got an acrylic yarn to it, and so it feels like roving. It's very soft, but it is not probably as big as, like, I could stretch it out if it were wool. I guess what I'm trying to say is it comes back. I didn't have super bulky for it, but I was doing testing for it, and I just had to use what I had because I was testing so many things all at once. I took a bulky roving type yarn and I held it with a worsted in a similar gray. And so I really actually like this. It's good for a scarf size, a shawl size. And then of course, wrapping it around you, it really opens up the lace pattern. I don't know if you can see. It opens up the lace pattern. I'm too close. Oh well. So I did that one already, but I do know that I have enough yarn in one of those colors to make another one of these, and I'm thinking it would really be pretty. And I'd probably like the way it blocks out better, because I think that is at least wool blend yarn. I think I showed you this last time. I think this would look, I would have a very similar look with the yarn I'm thinking of using. It's nice and smooth, roving type yarn. I think it would look really pretty. And so I'm thinking of doing one of those big enough to easily double it around my neck for warmth. Another one I do like is the Meaford wrap. And she actually did it in a cowl, which I made. I made a large Meaford cowl, and I've actually given that away now, but it was really nice, which can be made as a cowl. And it's just a seed stitch. That's really pretty. I'm thinking though, I probably, since I have such smooth roving like yarn, I will probably do the Lambton cowl or the Durand and maybe the Siska toque. So these were just first thing I thought of with super bulky yarn. So that's gonna be my recycle project. One thing I might do is my Oh My Bear sweater. I made it to be, I think it was only offered in one size. And I knit it probably at a tighter gauge than she said, but it was still going to have ease in it. And I wanted it to be an easy fitting sweater. Sort of like if you borrow your big brother's sweater or your husband's sweater. I wanted it to be like that. However, when I went to doing the sleeves and the round, my gauge tightened up. It's a tighter gauge than the body, and they just don't, I don't know, they don't seem to fit right. As soon as I made it, I noticed that, but I just went with it. They almost kind of hold to my arm, and they keep this way up here instead of letting it relax down. And so what I'd like to do is undo the sleeve, just undo the whole thing, and redo it at a looser gauge with larger needles, and I think it would be fine. I'd like it to be the same length. I have a little bit of this yarn. It's discontinued Patons classic classic tweed in a brown, and it is my favorite brown tweed. And they don't make it anymore. I have enough though that if whitening this sleeve or knitting at a looser gauge required more yarn, I would be fine. I think I have a ball, so I should be good. I just have to find that yarn. Another thing, if I could find the yarn, I might consider doing, and this is old stuff. I knit this skirt. Let me show you how it was supposed to look first, and then I'll show you how it ended up looking. I'm having to scroll so far. I have a lot of projects. Okay, here we go. It's the Lacy Skirt with Bows by Cat Coyle. Okay. This was from the Greetings from Knit Cafe book. Isn't that cute? It's really cute. It looks like a lightweight little summery cotton skirt. Let's see what type of yarn this called for. Twisted Sisters Doctari, yeah, which was a slightly variegated cotton, slubbed cotton. So I went to Hill Country Weavers for the first time eons ago, and I asked if they had that, and they said no. But they recommended Mission Falls 1824 cotton. So I used it. I knit up the skirt, and it was very shapeless, I thought. I know this is just sort of a disembodied skirt. You really can't tell. It was supposed to drawstring with like a ribbon or something around me. It was huge. It looked terrible on me, and it was very heavy and dense, and it was pretty cotton though. I don't know now if I find this skirt, I've gained weight. I'm like, my body's different. It might be like all bodycon. I don't know. Maybe it would be cool again. Probably I'm thinking not. I would like to unknit that or frogget and knit this Fildar vest. And I would like to make the vest with a little more ease than is shown on the Ravelry page. There was a knitter, I'm going to link to her, it's either her Flickr or her blog, maybe her Ravelry. Her name was Another Shop Girl, and she used to knit. She's gone on to other things and probably abandoned her blog, but that was back when blogs were fun and everybody was doing it. She knit a version of that. I wish I could show it, but I don't want to do that off her Ravelry. It's got a lot of ease and it's so cool looking. That has been in my queue for forever. And I sent off for an English copy of that Fildar magazine. So I got the magazine and then I got photocopied in English a packet stapled with it, just so that I could make that. And I thought maybe that cotton would work for it. Somebody used Rowan soft cotton and it looked great. So I thought it might be kind of fun. I know cotton knits can be sort of heavy. I just felt like it maybe would work with this vest, and I've never been able to get that yarn in this vest out of my mind. So that could be a recycle or reknit project. And also on that lacy skirt with bows, if I think that won't work for that vest and I'm not gonna get around to it, I've been wanting to do Tony Lipsy's Daydream shawl pattern. And I think that the Mission cotton might work really well in that pattern. I also have this Avalon Cascade. It's a cotton summery yarn. I thought I would use that for Tony's pattern, but that Mission Falls yarn is so interesting, and it's such a pretty kind of vintage looking color to me. I would like to try to use it for Tony's Daydream pattern. It's just time I knit one of Tony's patterns. I have so many favorited. So I just feel like with all that fringe, that might look really cool. I don't know if the Mission Falls yarn would actually work well with something more stockinette-like. So I'm not really quite sure what I want to do with it. I'm going to show you a vest I'm making right now. I am working on a boucle non-vest version of the boxy V-neck vest. This is by Katya Gorbacheva, and it is meant to be an oversized vest, but I did not do the outside arm shaping, shoulder shaping, whatever, right here. I went ahead and made it a drop sleeve body, and I added sleeves to it. I am now finished with this. I finished this yesterday. This is Midnight Heather Wool of the Andes Sport, I think, for the trim. And this boucle yarn is something from, it came in this huge, I got 2 cones of it. It is Textures Yarn Wool Boucle Cone. I knit this whole sweater in almost just 1 cone. This is her 3rd size. It's the 46.5-inch bust. 1 cone did this whole thing. I have this yarn here as, you see what I put it as. I don't know what I listed this as, but I'm saying it's a sport weight. It is very difficult to see, but it's so fuzzy, fluffy. There's such a halo on it. I consider it sport weight. And 1 cone did this whole sweater in a tiny bit of a sleeve. So now I have another cone left. I could totally make another vest with it or something else, but I probably won't do this pattern for another vest. I really like the fit of this. This looks really bunched up right now. It's not been blocked, but when I put it on, this is a nice open V-neck. Anyway, I'm gonna show you. It's gonna be all blocked and ready to go next week, but I just wanted to work with boucle yarn, but this was an affordable boucle. I mean, it was very affordable. It's 30% wool though. 70% of this is acrylic, but Textures yarn, They have a lot of things on Etsy. It is a boucle that is, all boucle is a blend, pretty much. There's usually a wool blend with something. I feel like this feels nice and soft, and it's an affordable boucle yarn. So I was really pleased with this. I enjoyed this pattern so much that I actually do want a vest though. So the original pattern, let me show you the photo. She has her daughter wearing this. This is a lot of ease, and I really like that fit. And I think that is really it's been out for quite some time. It's a super trendy, oversized vest fit. Look, I'm in the middle of a row. Oh my gosh. Anyway, this looks super tiny, but it is the same size. It's coming up at the same gauge, and it is in Ella Rae tweeds. And I just want to show you this tweed yarn. If you can see the little flecks of gold, blue, and red. It's a gray with a lot of interesting little colorful tweed flecks. And I will show you this better next week. I'm rushing. I'm afraid my camera is fixing to conk out on me, but this is a great TV knit, and that is why I cast this on, to have something to do while watching TV. You guys had some good ideas. Serious Lisa said this Eastwood cardigan that I showed last time that does not fit me could be recycled into pillows. That would be fun. Wouldn't it be cool if the arms were big enough to make like bolsters? But yeah, that would be a fun thing to do with this. I also was thinking laptop cozy with this, this side, the front, being fold over. I would actually have enough pieces to maybe make an envelope type sleeve for a laptop. And I don't have a laptop yet, but my husband does. He would never use a cozy like this. But I don't get how people just carry theirs around without, just bringing it all over the place without a bag or some kind of cozy. Maybe I'm just a freak, but like with my phone and everything, I always use like major protective stuff, and I've never had anything break that way. So I thought this would be good for an iPad or laptop cozy also. Thank you for the idea, Lisa. That's something I might keep in mind for some other knits too. And then Dawn mentioned this would be good for mittens, which was something I was thinking about doing. Sewn mittens, and she said there's a lot of YouTube channels that show that, and I looked and there are. I'm going to show two links. One requires 4 pieces per mitten, and you use the cuff of the sweater to be your cuff at the bottom of the mitten. I actually like the idea of the one where you line your hand along the edge, the folded edge of your sweater, and you just cut out your mitten shape. You would turn it inside out. You sew it, and then you flip it and trim and flip it inside out, and there you go. It's done. Now, I don't know how well it works with a sweater that's dense like this, where things won't fall apart. I'm not sure. I'm very insecure about doing that. If it were felted, it would be no brainer. But I don't want to felt this. I think that I would lose all that distinct pattern. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. But I'm going to link those. That's what I want to do with this. I want to make mittens, and I'm going to link the pattern, the YouTube example for you guys in the notes. Everything's in the notes always. So now, one more thing I thought of doing that I could use to remake is I started cutting up our t-shirts. You know how if you have children, their school is constantly selling a t-shirt for everything. It's Tuesday, buy a t-shirt. Well, I have tons of those. Plus we had all our, old t-shirts and workout t-shirts and t-shirts from sports and taekwondo and stuff. And so I made t-shirt yarn years ago, and I started collecting it in a big bag, and I have all these colors, and I was going for grays and blues and greens. And so I have a big mix of colors. I have other things though, like red. Basically any t-shirt I had that looked like it would work for t-shirt yarn, I tried to use. Some of them were striped. It was kind of cool. This is super dusty. This was a striped t-shirt at some point. And I thought I would make a rug, maybe like the Modern Daily Knitter, their first book, they had a t-shirt rug. I thought about doing that. Then I thought about baskets, something stiff. So if I find that I've collected enough t-shirt yarn, I might actually do something with this, and this would be another remake project that's not knitting at all. Or I might knit it. It might be crochet though. So anyway, I'm excited about my potential projects. Fixing a knit or two, recycling yarn from one knit for another, and then using t-shirts to make something and sweaters to make sewn mittens. Sounds like a good plan. I'm going to say all through the month of March we do this together, and that you show me what you're doing on Instagram. I'll have a hashtag set up. I think I'm going to call it RecycleReknitRemake. There is already a remake along that somebody did, and I wasn't going to use their hashtag. So RecycleReknitRemake. And tag me on it, and that's where we'll participate. And I have something I've been hanging on to for some time. It's a really lovely prize that someone donated. It's a big one. It's good. And I'll draw. Like, I will kind of collect how many times people post on Instagram and do a random drawing. And so the more you post and show what you're doing, the more opportunities you'll have to have your name in the hat. That's what I think I'm gonna do. So for sure, comment here. Tell me what you've decided to do. I appreciate all of your thoughts about things you have done. I wanna share some of that now. Louise already has totally reknit something. Just since I talked about it, she was probably going to do it anyway, but she immediately started posting on Instagram, and I actually have the finished object, her finished thing, in my stories under highlights for reknit, remake, I don't know, recycle cow or recycled knit, something like that. I had to make it fit. So it was the top of a yoke sweater that she had made for her grandson, and it was starting to stretch because the top part was knit in alpaca yarn. It was knit top down though, and she couldn't undo the alpaca, so she literally cut the sweater, cut arms, cut body, all of it. Then joined them again together with a different wool and knit up to the top. So good, such a good way to fix a knit. And I asked you, Louise, if you would have done that for yourself. I probably wouldn't go to too much trouble for myself. I don't know though, I'm fixing to try. But for somebody else, I absolutely would. Lori has ripped back a shirt that didn't fit and knit Isabel Kramer's Cullum tee and has really enjoyed that, and is planning on reknitting some socks that she made for someone that were too small. So she's gonna try reknitting them. Kimmy said a pieced together sweater sounds like a great idea. That is a very smart idea to do with different knits. I wonder, Kimmy, if you would think about doing that for this knit along. Like, if you would show us on your Instagram, that would be so exciting. I would really love to see that. Christy has a stack of knits she was going to donate, but is now considering saving a few to recycle in some way. So you guys just start spamming the YouTube comments with ideas for ways to reknit and remake stuff. Things you've done, keep at it. Advice for others that say, well, I have, like in here, there's somebody, I think it's Danielle, has half wool, half acrylic yarn, clean and ready to go and be used for a reknit, but isn't sure what to make. You guys just start putting ideas in. Respond to each other. We're trying to make this a dialogue, right? Yes, give Christy some ideas on what to do. Cherie has frogged a sweater and reknit it in a smaller size. That's a good idea. My issue with sweaters for me is that a lot of them didn't fit anymore because I need them in a larger size and there's not enough yarn to go back and reknit in a larger size, with the exception of the sleeves for this, because I do have an extra ball of this yarn somewhere. But that's really cool. If you can go down a size, that's super easy for a reknit. That's a good idea. Jen has reused sweater yarn that seemed like she was trying to reknit it into a different a sweater and it just wasn't working right. She wasn't enjoying working with it. So she used it to border a blanket, but has since realized that if she had just washed and reskeined it, probably her yarn would have smoothed out and been lovely to work with. So that's another thing, you guys, if you are trying to reknit yarn that you undo from a project somewhere, washing it and like hanging it to dry. I remember way back in the day, and I'm gonna link, I can't think of her name. I was thinking it was Ashley. She had a blog post that a lot of people enjoyed about buying a sweater at Goodwill, figuring out which ones were the best to rip back and how to rip it back and wash the yarn and dry it in such a way that it pulled the kinks out. And I think she washed it and then she had it looped and in like a what do you call it? A skein. And she hung it from the top of her shower nozzle, and so it made a loop down, and I think she took a coat hanger and hung it at the bottom, and that just kind of stretched out some of those kinks, and then it dried and she could reuse it. So that's a good idea, and I'm going to have links for that in the notes also, that blog post. Let's see, Mimi decided to get rid of all of her store-bought sweaters when she went into knitting her own, but saved a couple purposefully to felt. And she's had these felt pieces to use somehow sewing in a sewing project and hasn't actually done it yet. So I hope you'll join us, Mimi, and find a use for that. Maybe somebody can give Mimi some ideas for using felt pieces. Let's see, Ivana has sweaters set aside to reuse the yarn. She was going to use them in weaving. And she said it's okay in weaving, you can mix yarn weights, and it's not such a big fear of running out of yarn because you can just, put in something else. There's just such a variable nature to a weaving project. It's very forgiving that way, and it produces really interesting fabrics with different mixed weights of yarn. And then the next episode, she commented in 52 that she's already started making the pieces and she's felting some to make pillow or cushion covers, bags, things like that. So that's an idea for your Mimi, for your felted pieces. And I am so interested, Ivana, to see some of the things you do. You may have already started posting pictures on Instagram. I'm gonna have to look. But you guys, if you post your photos on Instagram, please hashtag RecycleReknitRemake. Catherine has both reknit something she had already previously knit into a different project, and also bought an item used to use the yarn for reknitting. She said vests and gloves were projects that she had done. She tries to use affordable yarns that the ethics of the company align with hers, but they still are maybe a little more affordable yarns. And she also, just in responding to the heavy commercialization of podcasts and blogs and things, that she tries to avoid too many advertisements. But Catherine had said she has her own podcast, and I asked you what it was, and I'm just going to tell everybody. It's Neat and Knot by the Sea. It's mostly a cross-stitch podcast that she does with a friend, but she actually said that she records separate episodes in Spanish for her children, so they'll have them one day to see kind of what their mom was doing. Her mother got Alzheimer, and she lost some of the memories that her mother would have shared with her. And you mentioned it might seem morbid. I don't really think it is at all, though. I think our children will appreciate this. Now, being, smartphone users, our children may be inundated with all of our data that's out there, but like long form talking, podcasts, interviews with family members, I think is just the smartest thing to do with people, with your parents, and for your children one day. So I have interviews with my grandparents that I need to get all kind of grouped together and organized. And I've recorded those for my own enjoyment, but also for my children. And then, of course, my children will have my podcast. I don't know if they would ever watch it, but those episodes will be out there for them. I think that's a really sweet thing to do. And it's a lot of extra detail and trouble to go to for your children. I think that's really sweet, Catherine, and I want to check out your podcast, though I know nothing about cross-stitching. So I hope you will join us, though, by remaking something else if you find something. And also, a good way to recycle something you probably do embroidery too. Have you ever embroidered on knits? Take a sweater that's kind of blah, you don't wear it, and add some embroidery or something like that. I would be interested to see if you have or to hear about it. So one more thing Catherine shared, just kind of on the whole subject of patterns and, the craft world as a business. And she was saying that she wishes more people just devise their own sweater designs rather than relying on patterns so much. And I think that you mentioned, Catherine, that possibly we rely on these sweaters. I'm sorry. I keep looking at my flashing light on my camera. Possibly we rely on these patterns because we're just like, they're everywhere. There's a pattern for everything now. We really have no gaps in what we want or need that we would even consider just DIYing something and figuring out how to do it. I mean, honestly, when I wanted to make this, I didn't know of any pattern that looked like this. I have actually seen, since I made this, some patterns mixing plaid with textural stripes like this, but at the time I had only seen plaid with like a strand fished through the sweater or else crochet chain stitch vertical. And I don't think I still have seen where, the sleeves are reversed from the body and stuff like that, and the whole sweater is reversible. I don't know if I've seen anything like that in such a busy color work pattern, but that's why I was just challenging myself. I wanted something a little over the top. I think that's it. I think that we have everything right in front of us, and we're also trained to buy. And I say this, I totally fall for it and actually like buying, like I was saying. So these patterns, these books, I mean, I love using other people's patterns. I have so many more patterns than I'm ever going to use on Ravelry. But there is a value in figuring out how to do something yourself. And I think we would all really benefit from, I don't know, I think we would feel good if we recycled some of our stuff we're not using. So for me, I gave some things away. That's sort of recycling. I have been collecting bits and pieces that are not knitting, that I could make into knitting. And then I have knitting I want to undo, knitting I've undone and I want to redo, and you guys have so many good ideas too. What else did I want to tell you guys? After I ask this question, and I'll re-ask it again, I'm going to talk to you about a DIY project around our house, because I said I was going to show some. And like for bigger things like a bathroom or the kitchen, I'll probably just make like a separate episode. You'll see it though. It'll come up in your feed. It's just not going to be knitting related. It'll be DIY. Just cause, we did a big DIY on a bathroom and a kitchen at our last house, and they were really awful. They were awful befores. The after was really cute. It's really small, really budget friendly, but they were so cute. And I never recorded it anywhere. Like I have photos, and that's it. Maybe I'll plug some in when I show, because we did a similar kitchen thing here. Maybe I'll show some of what we did before. But anyway, I'm just going to talk about our little bookshelf that my husband made. We looked at doing a Billy hack, like an IKEA Billy bookcase hack, but they aren't super sturdy looking. And he's been fiddling around with wood for a while, and every project he makes, he gets a little more confident, and he felt ready to tackle a really big bookcase, and that's what we have. So when he gets back, I'm probably just gonna kind of take pictures and video and ask him questions about how he did it. keep commenting here on YouTube what you've decided to make. And if you see others like Danielle saying, or Mimi saying, I have these felted pieces, or I have all this acrylic wool blend, I'm not sure what to make with it, comment, give each other ideas and encouragement. Also, the actual giveaway prize for this make-along will be based on your Instagram posts. So I'm gonna do this as an Instagram giveaway, and you don't have to take part on Instagram. You can just talk in the comments here, but the prize is gonna be an Instagram giveaway. And so the more you show your progress in your different projects, the more your name goes in the hat for the drawing. And it's a really good prize. It's something Anna gave me probably 2 years ago. That's just beautiful. It's big, it's good. And I have been waiting till I got back into podcasting to give that to somebody. And I need to get it off my hands because it just feels too good to just be holding on to, waiting for the perfect giveaway. So use the hashtag that you see me put up on Instagram, and it's going to be this right here, RecycleReknitRemake.
You'd like to know.
How tall is this thing?
It's about 8.5 feet tall because I'm 6'5".
No, you're not.
I'm 6'2", and this is about 8.5 feet tall.
Okay, and you built it in parts and brought it here. Like, how many parts were there?
There were 3 parts, and then the doors I didn't put on until I got here. But each of these parts, this was all one part right here, and then from here to here was one part, and then this was one part, and we stood it up on its end in a trailer and put bubble wrap and blankets and all kinds of plastic wrap around it and strapped it down real good and brought it here on a low boy, and then me and Jesse carried it in, set it up, and these pieces right here just fit together on both of those sides.
So those front facing trim pieces, they were already attached. You didn't attach them?
Everything was attached just like this. It was in 3 big giant pieces, and those I laid it down in our old garage and built it on the floor flat like it would look on the wall so I could make sure everything fit together. And then we screwed it into the wall, screwed the pieces in together, and then put the doors on. It was ready to go.
And how long did it take to assemble it when you got here? Do you remember?
Oh, well, I mean, the doors took a little bit longer, but just this took like an hour. It wasn't very long at all.
So how much do you think it cost?
About $800. There's, I think, 7 sheets of plywood, and then the paint, and then the little odds and end tools that I had to buy to build it. If I built it again, there's so many tools I have now that I wouldn't have to buy again.
Like, is it all plywood? Is that the only wood you used?
Pretty much. There might be a few pieces of actual hardwood in there, but I think pretty much all of it's plywood.
Plywood isn't hardwood?
No.
What's hardwood? Like oak?
It's a solid piece of wood. Plywood is layered.
Like MDF, kind of?
No, MDF is...
Okay, I'm sorry. For another day. Okay. All right. And the doors on the cabinets, those you assembled after you got here, and those are also plywood? Mm-hmm. Cool. So maybe $500-600 for wood, and what would you say the rest of it was? Like primer and paint?
Paint, and then, sandpaper. And
what kind of paint did you use?
I used oil-based primer and an oil-based paint from Sherwin-Williams.
And then your new tool that was your game changer.
Yeah, that was the pocket hole jig, so that you can, it drills the hole at an angle, and then you can put the screw in, and then you can hide the hole with wood putty and just paint right over it, and it completely disappears.
That's cool.
And it's a really strong joint too.
And then what was your other technique that you said you got really good at?
Oh,
just smoothing.
These right here. Normally on plywood, it's really rough, and you have to either put veneer on the front of it, or what I did was put wood putty on the front and just kind of use my hands to smooth it down. And then after it dried, I used sandpaper in different grits to smooth it out and make it, because veneer, it'll chip off, you know, because it's just glued on, but I wanted something more permanent. So this makes it look like a real piece of wood in the front.
Yeah. So we were going to go along all the way up, like the angle, or at least part way, making an angled bookshelf. And do you remember why we decided not to?
We didn't think it would look very good, and we thought that beam would be off center.
Yeah.
And I mean, to go all the way to the ceiling here would have been like 15.
It would have been
feet.
insane.
It
Yeah.
would have been like,
I would have had trouble climbing that ladder.
You wanted me to put a rail along the top for a ladder, like in a library.
Right. But I never wanted to go all the way up. That would be crazy. That would be cool, but maybe a little too busy. And we felt like this looked good.
And we never could agree on how we want, because you wanted the shelves to kind of match this, you know, the way they were laid out here, and we drew it out on paper and it just wasn't going to look right.
No. So show the doors. Open up the cabinet. This is all your video game stuff, my records. I can't believe all of my records fit. Record player or turntable, excuse me.
Everything goes in there.
All of that.
Yeah.
Perfect fit. And then the one thing we noticed was that little bend in the wood there. That's just warped plywood, but
Probably, if I could do anything different, I would have, like, you know, checked stuff like that. And then I probably would have gone ahead and put the hinges on there that we wanted, rather than, I just did this because we were in a hurry. Yeah, because see, there's a little bit of play right there.
right. Cool. You did such a good job.
Thank you.
Are you pleased with it?
Very.
I think my finger was in most of this recording, but oh well. We're going to go with it. What's your next big project?
What is my next big project?
What is it? I'm not sure. We're going to do a wardrobe area. Take out a vanity. Oh, yeah. The catio, but that's mostly going to be
No, that's
me.
your big project. My next big project is lights in the... Well, that's not a big project.
It's not
I
exciting.
don't know what my next big project is.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
This was way better than a IKEA Billy bookcase hack. That would have been over $1,000. This was about $800. And if wood prices hadn't been so ridiculous, what could it have cost?
Oh, probably almost half of that.
That is insanely good. This looks built in. So how did you screw, like each piece is screwed in?
There's
Like to
there's
studs?
some solid piece of wood up there, and then down here on both sides, and then in the middle there too. And
Yeah.
I just drilled into studs all the way through and put some heavy screws in there to hold it against the wall.
So those were your solid pieces, your pieces of solid wood were for driving into the wall?
Well, they might. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, you're useless. I'm just going to scrap this whole thing. And let's just take that down and put our bent Target bookshelves back up.
Okay.
Thank you for humoring me.
It's hidden, and if it's not hidden, you can fill it in with wood filler or caulking or whatever and smooth it out, and then it's completely hidden after that. And
So it's like a jig.
yeah, it's a jig, and that you use a special drill bit that drills it in at an angle, and then when you're assembling this wood together and you use wood glue, it's a really, really strong bond and joint there.
So can you show me like a jig? He brought flowers home for me. Isn't that sweet?